And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel. Today we're taking a look at a two-player game from Stefan Feld called The Revolution of 1828. Now this here is a game that's based on they call it the first smear campaign that happened in a presidential election. Now, fortunately, this was 200 years ago. This sort of thing doesn't happen these days. But this is it says it's the first game in a series of games about historical events. Now, if I was making a game about historical events, I got to be honest, I don't think I'd pick Stefan Feld. He's a great designer, but he's not necessarily known for theming. And the front of this cover also, I think a lot of people might just walk by this on the shelf. It's like fading into the background here. You can barely see it, right? Be that as it may, I'm always interested in two-player games, and I love historically themed ones, and they often tend to be some sort of tug-of-war style game, which this one most certainly is. Let's take a look. There's 6 different regions here. Well, there's 5 regions in the press. So we have South, Central, North Central, South Atlantic, Mid-Atlantic, New England, and the press. Each of them has a different color here. So these are campaign areas in the press area here. And then you're going to have a bunch of tiles. In the middle there's an elector there, or the editor who's in the press. At the beginning of each round, and there's 4 rounds in the game, you're going to pull 3 discs from a bag and put them in a spot. Now they may or may not match the color of that spot. They usually won't, because the chance of that happening is pretty small. But that does not matter at this point in time. So you're going to pull 3 out and put them in each spot. Then players start taking turns back and forth. And on your turn, you take one of these unclaimed discs here in the middle of the board, anyone you want, and you'll claim that. Now, if you claim a delegate, each delegate is a color, and you'll put it on that side. So if I take this one, I would put it on South Central. If you claim a smear campaign, and smear campaigns here are not too positive. They're going to be negative for you if you're caught doing them, but when you take it, hey, it can go anywhere. So you can put it underneath anything. So I could put it here underneath blue, for example. If you're the person who takes the last disc of a 3 on one of the sides, then you will also slide the elector over and get another turn. I might take that one then. And if you take a campaign tile, or campaign action, you will either immediately do something or save it and do something later. So for example here, this news one, when I do this, I'll immediately take a smear campaign from my side of the board and give it to my opponent. This one here is gerrymandering. I'll take one of these and put it in another spot on the board. So there's just various things that they can do, and on the back of the book it will explain all of them. One of them you can keep it and discard it later on with another tile to take an extra turn. So players are going to go back and forth until all the tiles in the middle have been claimed. You're then going to compare each area. Whoever has taken more campaign tiles is going to get 3 points. Then you're going to compare each of the campaign areas. If you have more delegates on your side, then you get a point. 1 vote. If you have more delegates on your side and your opponent has no delegates, like for example here, I would get 2 votes. So for example here, I get 1. Here, my opponent gets 1. Here, I get 1. Here, I get, here and here, I get 2. And here my opponent gets 2. So go back and forth like that. If it's equal delegates, nobody gets points. Then, do you have the elector? If you have the elector, you get a point for each person you have. So here I would get 2 points. Here I would get 1. Here my opponent would get none. Here I would get 2. Here my opponent would get 4. And then finally, you deal with the press. Whoever took the editor, you don't want the editor, is going to basically give 1 vote to their opponent for each smear token they have. So you'll put all the smear tokens over here in the press area. And I have 2, and I took the editor, so I'd give my opponent 2 I give them 2 votes. All the tiles then, well not these, all the rest of the tiles are going to be returned to the box. Actually these 2 are returned to the box. The only ones you keep out are the smear ones, so you can lose points for them multiple times over the course of the game. They're thrown in the box, you'll pull out new tiles and start. After the 4th round, the game ends, and whoever has the most votes is the winner. Okay, so the box and the game have almost 2 different looks to them. The box has a more of a austere looking, oh, look at these guys, the different things going on. The game itself is just a bunch of tokens. They're nice, thick tokens, and then the different vote tiles, and then the little meeples. It's fine. It's all about colors. There is a nice chunk in the rule book that talks about the different candidates, a little bit of the history of the election itself, and explaining what some of the smeared tokens do. And on the back it has this, and this is actually pretty handy. I will say I don't know why there are 7 tokens, and if you showed me one of them, even after playing multiple times, I would not be able to tell you what each token does. They just aren't intuitive. I don't get it. It's not a huge deal because, again, you have that back of the booklet there, but the bag is fine, and the rest of the components they're fine. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about Revolution of 1828, except it just isn't that exciting. And there's so many of these, again, tug-of-war 2-player games out there, this one doesn't really stand out. This reminds me a little bit of tug-of-war and that little box game you might have played as a kid where you drew the lines between the different dots and whoever filled it in put their initials in the square, and then you got to go again, and so you might get to do a bunch in a row. That's what this feels like. It's like if I take the third one, I get to go again. So I'm trying not to let you take the third one. We go back and forth, and suddenly I take the third one, I get to take an extra turn. I take this, now you get to take the third one, you get an extra turn, and so where's the shakeup in the game? Well, there's shakeup in those smear tokens, which are pretty bad. Getting a wild one can get you a few points. Let's say I put a wild one on my side. Now I'm winning blue. So not only do I get the points for winning blue, but I also get an extra point for that tile. It's okay, they're good, but they're more deadly than not. If you get the editor and you give points to your opponent, let's say I have to give him 3 or 4 points, that's a 6 or 8 point swing, which can literally and almost always is the game. Getting the editor on the last turn, if you have any smear tokens at all, which is likely because your opponent can force you to take a few of them, you could lose because of that, because there's not a ton of points being given out in this game. I did say that the campaign tiles were a little bit forgettable on what you're supposed to do, and there are things like get another action, move a token. There's a few clever things you can do, but this game feels a bit confined. It doesn't feel like, woo, all the options. No, it's pretty small, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because, indeed, it is a small box. I felt like the game is smaller than that box even. It's back and forth, and yes, there's the history of 1828, which I'm sure appeals to some people. I find it interesting, but I don't think most people I played against were as keen on the idea. And it looks boring, plays a little boring, and at the end of the day, I don't think there's enough there. That taking that third token and getting the electoral sounds like this is a cool idea, but it feels like one part of a slightly bigger game. This one is not. I think some people will be interested in it, and you can learn about 1828 by reading the back of the book, or you could just go online and read about it there too. So, I'm not saying it's bad. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. That's not the clarion call of what you want to hear me say in a review these days, though. So, Revolution of 1828. You might want to check it out. I think I'm done with it, though. Dice Tower Judgment? It's okay.